Steve McQueen's legacy extends beyond his iconic flicks and stylish automobiles. A surprising testament, a hidden vault, an underground empire, and an isolated family member were all bequeathed to him. A miraculous finding decades later transformed legend into millions. What started out as a Hollywood mythology turned sinister, unveiling unanticipated truths. As investigation progressed, the narrative took an increasingly contorted turn. Also, it is not yet finished. Through the halls of reform school to the lap of monarchy. Instead of being born into a life of luxury, Steve McQueen was born into anarchy. Before he could say anything, his father left. His mother abandoned him multiple times, and his stepfather was aggressive. At the age of 14, McQueen had enrolled in Boys Republic, a reform school in Chino, California, where the emphasis was on physical and mental discipline rather than academics. For the first time, he realized he could stand up for himself, depend on his own resources, and trust no one. He was resilient despite his difficult childhood. He became more inflexible as a result. McQueen's demeanor served as both a barrier and an asset to his career. Conformity and rule following were of little concern to him. He was uninterested in being cordial. And for some reason, that was what set him apart. His producers despised the drama, but they were smitten with the money he made. Joining the Marines was McQueen's first step toward prominence. He was sent into the brig multiple times due to his clashes with authority. Still, he served his country honorably and subsequently incorporated what he learned into his acting performances. He was convincing on screen because of that air of peril. His performance was genuine. He wasn't trying too hard. The roles didn't come knocking for McQueen in Hollywood. He was pursued by roles. On occasion, he would even stroll off sets, not show up on time, and refuse to obey directions. However, nobody paid attention. His charisma on film helped viewers ignore the mayhem. He had risen to the status of one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors by the 1960s. He soared to new heights after The Great Escape. His expressionless gazes spoke more than any amount of words he spoke during the film. The film's motorcycle stunt went down in history, while the actual jump was performed by a stuntman. In any case, it bolstered the McQueen legend. Unflappable, cool, and courageous, there was an insatiable fan base. After that came Bullet, in which he drove around San Francisco doing his own stunts. For action movies, the vehicle pursuit sequence was a watershed moment. The green Mustang fastback became an emblem of McQueen's legacy and an important part of popular culture. The same Mustang fetched $37 million at auction many years later. His decisions on set were valuable for reasons other than financial gain. Even when he wasn't acting, McQueen despised attending parties here in Hollywood. He avoided the limelight by wearing jeans to premieres and not attending press conferences. However, his inherent mystique served to increase his worth. Producers were aware of his challenging personality, but viewers were unconcerned. The studios continued to pay him more just to be there. A new era of rule-bending in Hollywood began with McQueen. The Thomas Crown Affair, which was released in 1968, featured his outrageous demand for an upfront payment of $750,000. Afterwards, he established a back-end arrangement that allowed him a share of the earnings in the towering inferno. With that trade, he made more than $12 million. He achieved more than financial success. He also made history. Simply reading a script was enough to get McQueen $50,000. Even if he declined, he would have retained the funds. Knowing he could sell seats, studios were eager to collaborate with him. He exerted his authority over the set design and camera angles by simply demanding it. Most people were unaware that McQueen was accumulating riches in additional ways as well. Hundreds of watches, motorbikes, and automobiles were in his collection. In addition to owning real estate in California and investing in rare items, he also purchased land. Idaho and Mexico. He has intelligence without being showy. Unnoticed by his contemporaries, McQueen amassed an empire. His partnership with Honda was one of his most closely guarded secrets. When it came to advertising motorbikes in the United States, McQueen was involved. Bikes featuring his likeness were a smashing success. Everything changed. Even after he ceased performing for the cameras, that collaboration continued to bring in millions. In terms of branding, it was revolutionary for its day. It doesn't end there. There was more to McQueen's off-road racing than meets the eye. His covert stock holdings in motorcycles and other goods were promoted through it. He became a household name thanks to his desert racing lifestyle, and endorsement deals began rolling in. Without uttering a word, he amassed millions. He used his quietness to his advantage. Most people assumed McQueen died broke when he died in 1980. That was the impression given by cancer treatments, litigation, and legal expenses. However, his fortune was actually dispersed across many assets, including property, licenses, and secret accounts. For the sake of secrecy, he had organized everything. For many years, that strategy was effective. His true value remained a mystery to all, and the results are still coming in. Because of the lucrative licensing of his likeness, name, and film rights, his estate now earns millions annually. The value of his collection of cars and motorcycles alone is in the tens of millions. It was more than a profession that Steve McQueen built. His wealth will continue to grow even after the credits have rolled. He went from being king of cool to king of legacy. Hidden away in barns and vaults, McQueen's personal collection was the most priceless artifact that Hollywood nearly lost track of. Secret resources that were undiscovered. Money wasn't a blatant issue for Steve McQueen. He refrained from posing in front of enormous mansions or flashing expensive watches. Though he appeared to lead a simple life to onlookers, he was actually constructing something monumental behind the scenes. He methodically and covertly built an empire around his love of machinery. Just sealed barns and storage units full of valuables. No public records, no news attention. One of the greatest private collections of motorcycles ever seen belonged to McQueen by the 1970s. His collection included more than 130 unique and antique motorcycles, Models from the United Kingdom, Germany, and the United States, such as Triumphs, Husqvarnas, and Indians, were his favorites. Collectors would pay exorbitant prices for the unique bikes that were customized especially for him. He refrained from showing them. On distant locations, he kept them in garages with climate control. His passion for automobiles was as profound. Many of McQueen's roughly 60 high-end antique vehicles are now deemed irreplaceable, with the real Bullitt Mustang GT390, a Jaguar XKSS, and a 1963 Ferrari 250 GT Lusso. He was quite the driver. In addition, he preserved a legendary Porsche 917K, a very rare racing car. After some time had passed, that vehicle fetched nearly $14 million at auction. It wasn't for fun that McQueen was collecting. Assets that will appreciate in value over time were his investments. Every vehicle and bike was hand-picked. Many of them have a history in racing or storytelling. It was never his intention to sell or flaunt them. He saw the enduring worth of tangible, one-of-a-kind items, so he purchased them. Things that astonished a lot happened after he passed away. His executors unveiled a dusty New Mexico barn of his in 2006. Inside, they discovered a veritable hoard of unused memorabilia, including dozens of motorcycles, helmets, leather coats, scripts for his films, and race apparel with his name. It had been dormant for decades, unremembered. The entire worth was assessed by experts who cataloged it to be over $30 million. The perception of McQueen's wealth shifted after that barn was found. People had previously thought his estate consisted of little more complicated than a few pieces of property and any residual money from his films. However, the barn uncovered an unseen level of wealth. An ode to the golden age of Hollywood, it seemed. The contents were fit for a museum. More than half had never been laid eyes on by anyone. His smaller but valuable collections included antique timepieces, autographed photographs, and unique props from films, all of which he kept in his own secure vaults and safes. For instance, at auction, one of his Rolex Submariners fetched more than $234,000. A second extremely rare watch, a Hoyer Monaco race watch, fetched $2.02 million. Showpieces they were not. After wearing and using them, McQueen put them away. Collectibles weren't the only hidden assets of McQueen. Several small enterprises related to gear and equipment, as well as racing teams, were partially owned by him. A desert racing firm utilized his likeness for promotional purposes and sent payments to his estate. It was one of his more understated partnerships. Several of his film contracts also included profit-sharing agreements. Licensing value persisted even after a film's airing ceased, a more layer that is not well known. While he was alive, McQueen did something most celebrities don't. He licensed his image and name. Tag Heuer and Triumph were among the early brands with which he had rights deals. Decades later, his estate was able to cash in large on these deals, which were tiny at the time. Companies continue to pay to utilize his likeness and archived material even now. Thanks to that passive income, millions of dollars are coming in year. There was no outward sign of affluence in what McQueen made. There was wealth wrapped in it. It was sitting there adding value, but no one could see it. There was a narrative behind every vehicle, contract, and worn-out garment in that barn. He established a clandestine empire rather than a showy one. It was far more beneficial than I had anticipated. It went all the way down to his real estate decisions. His home was far from the heart of Hollywood than a showy get resort. In both California and New Mexico, he had isolated properties that he owned. It was easy to find spacious ranches that could house planes and bicycles. Some were only calm retreats. In addition to housing his collections, these areas served as storage zones. Secure, confidential, and never revealed to the public. The third shocker. Old film reels of McQueen's performances were also part of his collection. Along with his personal notes, he kept numerous copies of his most famous scenes. License agreements now include these reels, allowing streaming services to recover and repurpose his video. At the time of his death, that source of income did not even exist. However, he laid the framework for it far before the rise of digital media. What McQueen created was more than a mere assortment. A movie star may follow the plan and amass wealth without having to work nonstop. Passion became property, and mystery became wealth, all because of him. People finally grasped his significance beyond that of an actor when all of this became public knowledge. He was more than just a successful entrepreneur. He was a legendary figure whose fame would outlast his fortune, the will that caused a family feud and ultimately led to a wealth. Following a clandestine operation, Steve McQueen passed away in Juarez, Mexico on November 7, 1980. Mesothelioma is an aggressive and uncommon cancer that he contracted from asbestos exposure. He opted out of conventional therapy in the United States. Leotril, an experimental drug derived from apricot pits, was out of the question, so he took a flight to Mexico to give it a shot. Desperate, unapproved, and hazardous, the procedure proceeded. The night was too much for him. The news got quickly back home that McQueen had died. They claimed that he had no assets left because his money had been drained by cancer treatments. The reality, however, was very different. It took some time for the true worth of his estate to become apparent. Only after much time had passed would the value of what he had left behind become apparent. Nearly $2 million was the estimated value of McQueen's estate when he passed away. That sum just reflected money in the bank and other liquid assets, real estate, and plainly visible assets. Not included were the royalties, vintage automobiles, rare bikes, and image licensing rights, all of which would experience tremendous appreciation in value. Even his own crew was unaware of the complete extent of his possessions. Years after probate had ended, several assets were finally recorded. Just about 2 years before he died away, in January of 1979, he penned his will. It stated that Chad and Terry, his children, would be the main successors. No one was invited, not even Neil Adams, who was McQueen's ex-wife. His life partner at the time of his passing, Barbara Minty, received a small portion of his possessions, but no substantial financial portion. Given that they were allegedly engaged to be married, their decision came as a shock to many. A legal provision that excluded any offspring, both known and unknown, was the most contentious aspect of the will. Shortly thereafter, a mother sued, asserting that McQueen was the biological father of her son. The judge rejected her request for a portion of the estate, despite her assertions that she had proof. Even more shocking is the fact that Ed Hochstraten, McQueen's attorney, acknowledged 2 other paternity allegations that were never made public. These were discreetly dealt with in a private setting. No financial agreements were revealed, and they never made it to court. The fact that such claims existed demonstrated that McQueen's legal team anticipated disagreements. Those doors were meant to be shut early according to his will. His collection also introduced another legal difficulty. On paper, not all of McQueen's bikes, cars, and collectibles were clearly associated with him. As a result, it became unclear who the rightful owners were. In order to confirm its legitimacy, his relatives collaborated with appraisers and collectors. They were able to reclaim some of the misplaced goods through private sales and auctions. The estate's value increased by millions of dollars after that lengthy procedure. His son, Chad McQueen, assumed responsibility for a number of licensing and branding matters. In an effort to safeguard his father's reputation, he worked with businesses, refurbished cars, and gave his stamp of approval to items. His daughter, Terry McQueen, oversaw more estate affairs prior to her untimely passing in 1998. Her daughter, Molly, then became the owner of her portion. Although Barbara Minty was not a major heir, she became known for her association with McQueen's legacy and her role in spreading the word about him. Among McQueen's distinctive possessions was the right to notoriety. Meaningful management of his likeness, image, and name following his death is what this term alludes to. Not all famous people back then had it locked down. That one right became extremely significant to McQueen, and he did it. More money comes in now from licensing arrangements involving his image than he made from his films when he was alive. The estate's growth over time exceeded all expectations. The value skyrocketed into the tens of millions after the barn in New Mexico was found, sold at auction, and licensed. Forbes named McQueen one of the highest-earning deceased celebrities in 2015. Commercials, sporting events, and branded goods all featured him. His heirs are still benefiting from that source of income. Subtle court fights were also going on. No doubt, film profits from Bullitt and The Great Escape were the focus of a few. Other cases included the return of lent but unreturned memorabilia. Defending McQueen's name against unlawful use and spending years tracing down artifacts were the main responsibilities of the estate. Gaining a victory after another bolstered the brand's worth. One obscure fact is that just before he passed away, McQueen intended to open a museum. He envisioned a central location to display his motorcycles, racing gear, and movie memorabilia. Even the exhibit pieces were being organized by him. Parts of his collection have been included in temporary shows worldwide, but that desire was never fulfilled. Exhibitions like these keep people talking about him and increasing his name value for licensing. Fame wasn't the only thing Steve McQueen left behind. Decades after his death, his legacy lives on in a brand that revitalized whole industries, the unexpected licensing empire. The Star's popularity waned after Steve McQueen's death in 1980. Star's fashions and narratives came and went, and the world shifted gears. However, unanticipated events started to unfold in the background. Everything about him, from his appearance to his style, was appealing to brands. It became a significant source of income for them. It was the 1990s, and the licensing market was booming. The image of McQueen was a fantastic fit for the vintage icons that were in demand. Being a movie star wasn't all he was. He embodied classic defiance, coolness, and grit. McQueen became a secret weapon for firms who sought to market that. The realm of fashion was the initial epicenter. One photograph of McQueen in one of their coats was all it took for Barber to launch a $40 million advertising campaign. It had progressed beyond mere apparel. This way of life was it. Among the most lucrative still photos in advertising history, the photo rose to prominence. What came next was Tag Heuer. The iconic Monaco watch, which gained fame at Le Mans, was brought back to life by the Swiss watchmaker. The advertisement revolved around an image of McQueen donning it while driving. Not only did the relaunch preserve the brand, but it also drove sales to all-time highs. Then McQueen stepped forward, whose name had become an emblem of credibility. Using McQueen's association as a selling point, the automaker brought the Bullitt Mustang back several times. Advertising campaigns, posters, and limited edition models all paid homage to the icon. Collectors paid top pay for his models even when he didn't say a word, thanks to the strong association between the two. The estate's meticulous handling of these arrangements was the source of its true power. Not just anyone was being granted licenses, products that embodied McQueen's image were the primary emphasis of each contract. Stylish, manly, and traditional. It has other dimensions as well. Protecting a brand was the main concern. Because of that, the plan was successful. For all transactions involving McQueen's estate, Greenlight Licensing Group became the go-between. They oversaw matters pertaining to trademarks, product approvals, and the law. Also, with their support, McQueen's image became a managed company that continued to grow year after year. He became one of the highest-earning deceased celebrities by the 2010s, when Forbes started monitoring his posthumous earnings. The son of Steve, Chad McQueen, had a significant part to play. He sues businesses who used his father's name without permission and ensures that counterfeit goods are barred. He was also instrumental in developing new licensing projects that paid homage to the original. Strategic thinking, not emotion, guided his decisions. He was aware that the brand's continued value depended on strategic planning for the future. Everyone was participating, even Porsche. The business collaborated with the estate in 2017 to launch a collection of Le Mans-themed products. After that came specialized models, events, and goods. Commercials and limited edition materials featured McQueen's likeness. Anything associated with the myth would sell to collectors. Few are aware of the extent to which McQueen's reputation has been exploited in foreign marketplaces. His likeness appears on premium denim, racing apparel, and perfume in certain European and Japanese markets. The reason he never became overly American, according to licensing agents, is that he is still a powerful figure in international marketing. Generations and borders were unable to resist his taste, and borders were unable. Charisma. Surprisingly, the estate has maintained its selectiveness. A lot of famous people's homes are for sale, but McQueen's crew is keeping it tight. Value is added by this scarcity. His legion of devoted followers knows that anything bearing his name has been hand-picked. Demand and prices remain high because of this. These days, licensing generates yearly revenue in the 7 to 9 figures. The quantity is proportional to the level of activity in the campaigns. Although the statistics are strong even in sluggish years, licenses do not necessitate fresh performances in contrast to acting. Even after all this time, McQueen's stock video and photographs are still raking in the dough. What was the most important thing learned? Following his death, Steve McQueen amassed more wealth than he had throughout his cinematic career, and it has nothing to do with recent film releases. His legacy was solidified into a brand, and that's why. A brand that has stood the test of time and continues to evoke strong emotions among modern consumers, the heirs who become extremely wealthy. The battle for Steve McQueen's estate did not take place in boisterous courtrooms after his death. It took place in the background of whispered grudges, covert corporate decisions, and formal legal documents. This fortune didn't just materialize, changed it, segmented and isolated certain individuals entirely. Steve McQueen's only son, Chad, was the center of attention since he became the estate's public face so rapidly. He did not only inherit wealth, he also inherited authority. Before his father went away, Chad was already a famous actor and race car driver. Chad played a crucial role in preserving and overseeing the McQueen name following Steve's passing. He was instrumental in the formation of McQueen Racing LLC and later managed the branding of automotive, motorbike, and lifestyle goods. A portion of the image licensing and endorsement deals eventually fell into his hands. This low-key enterprise has contributed significantly to his net worth, which is currently over $45 million. The daughter of Steve, Terry McQueen, took an alternative route. Instead of starring in Hollywood films, she opted to work behind the scenes as an executive for Universal Studios. She kept to herself and avoided becoming involved in public disputes. After a liver transplant, Terry tragically died in 1998. Molly was named as the beneficiary of her estate in her last will and testament. Now that she is a member of the second generation, Molly McQueen shares in the success of the brand. As an actor and producer, she advises the estate on matters pertaining to her grandfather's reputation. With Molly's assistance, the McQueen brand's tone is protected and licensing arrangements are approved. Because of her position, she is able to enjoy the benefits of intellectual property rights and a regular stream of royalties. She has emerged as a crucial figure in preserving Steve McQueen's legacy. Although she was not designated as a main heir in Steve's will, Barbara Minty, his third wife and fiancée at the time of his death, was named in the document. Despite not receiving a sizable portion of the estate, she did receive clothes, letters, keepsakes, and personal effects, but she joined the earning circle when licensing took off. In subsequent years, she worked with Steve to co-produce a number of documentaries that served to honor his memory. As the McQueen brand grew, her best-selling book, The Last Mile by Steve McQueen, brought in even more money. Although Barbara did not receive much initially, she was eventually featured in several royal arrangements. Giving McQueen access to consult on projects was a way to preserve her public image. Because of this, she was able to see the back-end earnings of certain campaigns. Even though her financial share is still less than Chad's, she still has some say in how his legacy is portrayed in the present day. Moving on to Neil Adams, we have Steve McQueen's 2 children from his marriage to his first wife. Nothing, not a dime, not a piece of property, not even acknowledgement, was left to her in the will. Her part in Steve's early career was something she talked about freely for a long time. She said that she was there for him throughout his lowest points, helped him make connections, and helped develop his reputation. "I was erased from history," Niall claimed once. Her memoirs and interviews reveal that resentment. Although she has never gone to court, her remarks show how devastating it is to be ignored emotionally. Even though she is Chad and Terry's mother, she was left with nothing by the estate arrangement. One of the most debated aspects of McQueen's will is her exclusion. One individual, though, whose name never appeared in the press, is even more unsung. During a 1969 international filming, Steve apparently had a short affair. The mother then asserted that her boy was actually Steve's offspring. No one from McQueen's legal team ever formally recognized such claim. None of the money ever made it to the kid. We concluded the case after the mother passed away in 2012. However, new evidence such as letters and receipts emerged in 2023 linking McQueen to the lady throughout filming. Rumor has it that this man could be Steve's biological child. It has not yet gone to trial, nevertheless, due to the statute of limitations on such claims and the absence of formal DNA testing. Now, however, the allegation is allegedly about to be reintroduced by this man's legal team. A tiny fraction of the estate might be worth millions given its annual appreciation. If this is indeed the case, it may trigger fresh legal discussions or even a rebalancing of royalties. No public comments have come from the estate, but attorneys who have worked with McQueen will tell you that this fresh evidence might be enough to start a new chapter. Not only does Steve McQueen's name continue to appear on currency, but a secret vault may hold his most prized possession. A windfall is continually expanding. Steve McQueen's estate was worth somewhat less than $2 million when he passed away in 1980. This felt like a pittance for an actor who had once commanded a fortune in Hollywood. According to his detractors, his riches was wiped out by cancer treatments. Riches was wiped out by cancer treatment. Hidden value, the future of his name and brand, and the goods he left behind were things they failed to see. Over the years, that little windfall has blossomed into a bequest of $200 million. On their own, his collections have become very valuable. At auction, Bullitt's 1968 Mustang fetched $37 million. His Le Mans racing suit fetched close to $1 million at auction. His own pair of sunglasses and 2 purses went for $70,000. Not all sales resulted in monetary gain. His brand became even more legendary as a result. The fact that McQueen's wealth wasn't based on scripted biographies or extravagant public appearances is what sets him apart. It blossomed out of genuineness. With his fast automobiles, wild independence, and quiet defiance, he lived the life that everyone admired. Even when he was gone, that authenticity continued to bring in money. Nothing ever slowed down his estate. The world's perception of Steve is influenced by significant licensing deals that his family, headed by Chad and then Molly McQueen, signed. His image became a symbol of coolness and independence for apparel labels and vehicle ads. Additional revenue was generated with each transaction. As a testament to the estate's work, Porsche unveiled a limited edition 911 McQueen in 2024. It was gone in an instant. Collectors paid a premium for the car and all it stood for. In Le Mans, McQueen wasn't merely an actor, he was Le Mans. The value of such bond is immeasurable. The Idaho ranch he used as a retreat is now a quiet home for his family. Even without considering the appreciation of the property, it is still a gathering place for his successors, out from the limelight of the corporate world. As one of the few areas unbranded, it serves as a subtle reminder of his true identity. However, there is an enigmatic aspect of his legacy that remains unsolved. According to those familiar with the estate, there is one last storage vault that has not been opened and has a lot of mystery. It is said to contain letters written by McQueen to James Dean, an unfinished script for a jail escape picture, and a tape recorded just before his death. Although it has not been officially confirmed, some close to the family claim that it is true. This safe is more than a passing reference. If true, it has the power to alter his legacy by disclosing his innermost ideas, aspirations, and messages. Rumor has it that McQueen may be reflecting on his stardom, family, and regrets on the tape. There are those who think it's a message he never intended to share with the world. An increasingly potent legend develops the longer it remains sealed. The fact that McQueen's riches turned out this way was the most unexpected aspect of it all. Building a brand was never one of his talks. Neither did he write a tell-all memoir or try to get media attention. He was reclusive, worked hard, and lived a life of hard work. However, it was precisely this distancing that made him so endearing. His legacy has grown beyond just recollection in the time after. This is a model for a company. His style is still studied by brands. Hollywood continues to utilize his scenes. Despite their lack of understanding, marketers strive to capture the McQueen mindset. The money keeps coming in because of all of it. Annual earnings from McQueen's legacy now exceed those of the majority of working actors. Among Hollywood's afterlives, it ranks among the most valuable. The value of his estate is not limited to classic films. It changes, adapts, and makes money off of people's lack of youth. And yet, it remains firmly anchored in his identity. Simple, unassuming, and honest. As long as corporations continue to make deals and fans keep finding fresh photos, there will be collectors seeking memorabilia. The vault is still the unsolved riddle. Decades of work have culminated in this. Its very existence proves something, regardless of whether it opens next year or never. No matter where he is now, Steve McQueen will always have something to say. I appreciate you tuning in. Remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you loved this video. If you want to see more incredible videos, click on the one that comes up next.